Hey, what's up? So, I'm Chaz, and I'm a part of this really cool class at my high school called TED class. And we focus on videos produced through the TED organization. And we watch them online and discuss what we think about them, what we feel about them, and really try to understand what the speaker is trying to say. Every once in a while, we have an assignment to make our own video. So this assignment is to make about a 6-7 minute video on something that really captures us, um, really grabs our attention. And so I watched this really cool TED video online, and it's by the 2011 TED Prize winner. His name is JR, and the video is his TED Wish. And the TED Wish is a wish to change the world. And so he is a street artist, and what he does is goes around the streets of New York, um, Paris, Palestine, yeah, all over the world, and pastes photos on the walls. And um, one of his most compelling projects, in my personal opinion, is his face-to-face project. So what he did was he took photos of Palestinians and Israelis, and he pasted these photos of these people making silly faces right next to each other on the wall that separates Israel and Palestine. And and so he's walking around the streets of Palestine, um, and people come up to him and say, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he says, "Oh, I'm just pasting photos of Israelis and Palestinians right next to each other." And the Palestinians would say, "You're doing what? You're pasting photos of Israelis on the wall?" And and he said, "Yeah, yeah, that's part of the art project." And then he kind of waits a little bit. There's a little bit of an awkward silence, and then he says, "Can you tell me who's who?" And most of them couldn't tell him. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't tell him. And this is really compelling to me because through art he expresses uh, his feelings about their conflict. They are pretty much the same. They come from the same place. They have, yes, they have different religious beliefs, but when it comes down to it, they're the same. Um, and he posts photos of taxi drivers, and he'd ask Israelis and Palestinians, what, can you tell me who's who? And they can't do it. Another project of his uh, was in the favelas of Rio de Janeiro, and he what he did is he posted um, pictures of women all over the streets, um, and it was to make an attempt to express the power of the mother figure. Um, and what he did was he took photos of grandmothers and mothers and pasted them where the violence was the greatest in the favela. Um, and so there, whenever these gangsters or street thugs would go to fight, there would be a photo of a grandmother with a stern look, looking at them right in the eye, um, and you can just feel um, the emotion that's coming through these photos. Um, and so the since the media wasn't allowed inside of the favela um, for political reasons, they had to fly around on helicopters to try to figure out what they were doing. Um, and due to his project, um, the whole hillside of the favela was covered in photos of women's faces and women's eyes. Um, and it's extremely beautiful. Um, and even though it's technically illegal, people keep the photos up because it's inspiring and moving. Um, Another project he did was, I believe, in Africa, and there was this really poor town, um, and so usually what he does is he pastes these big photos on walls, and he uses paper. But in this town, since the poverty level was exceedingly high, he used, I believe, nylon or some type of waterproof fabric, and actually strung up these photos as roofs, and which created housing for these people in this town. And so not only was his art compelling, but it was useful. And these photos were of the townspeople smiling and waving and making silly faces and showing to the world, because you can see these images on Google Maps, um, and showing the world that they are more than what the media makes them out to be. And so his whole project, whether it be Africa, New York City, London, Rio de Janeiro, um, his project uh, is, it's not necessarily changing the world, but it's doing what he says, turning the world inside out. He's extending the um, the understanding of peoples throughout the world. Um, and earlier in this class, we watched a video on the danger of the single story. And so JR, what he does is he extends this single story to other things. So that's why I find this so compelling. And that's the end.